This morning, we have a wonderful opportunity. We have a wonderful opportunity to rethink Christmas. Now, I have to make a confession. As I put this idea of this 30-plus week story together, and as I was looking at how each week would be played out, I suddenly realized that the second Sunday in Lent would be the Christmas story. Oh my Lord, what do you do with that? We're in Lent, we're headed to the cross, but now we take a U-turn and we go back to the manger. And friends, I want to share this. My hope and prayer, as it has been this week in preparing for this time, has been of one of life's greatest blessings. This quagmire I thought we would be in on this Sunday, at least for me this week in preparation, has been one of life's greatest blessings, because exploring Christmas during Lent enables us to dig deeper without the trappings of the holidays. I often wonder what's going on in your brain when your fanny hits that pew on Christmas Eve. Is it, I'm exhausted? Or is it, I've got to stay up till 3 a.m. to put together the bike? I often wonder what's on your mind when we gather. We don't have to worry about that right now. I was going to say it's not snowing, but it's only snowing out now. We don't have the trappings of the holidays. We don't even have the trappings of our religious traditions. That's a biggie. We will not be standing holding a candle, singing Silent Night. We can free ourselves of that in this moment. It is a blessing to be where we are so we can revisit Christmas again. Now let me put the story in context. If you remember last week, we heard from Ezra and Nehemiah and also Malachi, and we dealt with the building of the temple walls. The temple had been completed. They wanted to build the walls around it. The prophets were telling the people to stay steady and stay steadfast. The walls were built for protection. We now, from last Sunday to this Sunday, have just jumped 400 years. Welcome. Quite a trip. 400 years from the time the temple walls were built to where we are now. And not much in our Holy Bible is said about these 400 years. There are many other books, many of them apocryphal, that talk about this 400-year time frame. But we see now, in that 400 years, where the temple was always the constant reminder of God's presence with the people, 400 years later, the birth of Jesus becomes the witness of God coming and growing in us so that example might shine and work through us. I welcome you all to the mystery of the Incarnation. The Incarnation, the Word becoming flesh and dwelling among us. The blessing of this day is that we can hone in on this theological gem and see what we may not have seen just a few short months ago on Christmas Eve. I've always found it amazing that the book of Genesis and the Gospel of John start the same exact way. In the beginning. The affirmation that Jesus was not, and I don't know how many times I have heard this spoken, that Jesus is not a plan B in God's upper story. That God didn't sit back one day, look at all the available data, looked at what was going on in earth, decided to call all his heavenly angels together for an administrative council meeting, and said, folks, I'm glad we're together, I'm glad I called this meeting because it looks like I need to make a trip. Oh, it'll last about 33 years or so. And it looks like I need to take this journey with my newly created son, Jesus. No, that's not at all what happened. Jesus was with God in the beginning. When God first created, Jesus already was. I wonder how many of us were thinking that as we were holding our candle on Christmas Eve, singing Silent Night. The Incarnation is affirming both the complete divinity and the complete humanity of Jesus. Now think about this. Jesus was so divine, he entered this world through the womb of a virgin. Wow. That's pretty divine. But he was also completely human. He enters this life very human. So human that the Bethlehem Motel 6 forgot to leave the light on for him. There was no room at the inn for Joseph and Mary. Did you know? Even our altar area is about the Incarnation. We light the Christ candle, which symbolizes to us that Jesus is the light of the world. But we also have 2 candles. Why? Is it just because one would look weird? No. There are always 2 altar candles that describe the complete divinity and humanity of the light of Christ. This is a theological gem we can revisit this morning. And my message to all of us, and the message that I got this week as I was putting this together, and you will be able to share this message with anyone. If someone says, "How was church on Sunday? What did the guy babble about this week?" 3 words. Don't miss Jesus. That's it. Don't miss Jesus. Don't miss Jesus because our lives are too crowded. The innkeeper missed Jesus because his world was too crowded with commotion and the influx of people to be counted in the census, crowded by their wants and their needs. And while it might have been a financial boom for him, I'm sure it was also a very trying time and a very tiring time for him. But friends, let's not miss Jesus, because our lives are too crowded. The things in our life are so crowded with our deadlines, our long lines, worry over our waistlines, our phone lines, our to-do lists, and those lists of things we've done which we wish we didn't. Got any? The regret over those things we've done. Don't miss Jesus because of our family schedules, our vocational responsibilities, our financial demands. Don't miss Jesus because our cups of worry and anxiety and panic are filled to overflowing. So many times there just simply doesn't seem to be room for Jesus as Jesus stands knocking at the door of our hearts. Ex Licato, the gentleman that you saw this morning, says something very profound in one of his writings. He says this: don't think that when Jesus comes to dwell in your heart, that he comes with a list of things to do. Jesus doesn't come to us and say, "Oh, by the way, I want you to do A, B, C, D, E, and F." He goes as far as to say, whoever taught you that is wrong. What Jesus does do is Jesus knocks on our hearts and gives you a list of things he's already done. I have forgiven you. I have redeemed you. I have loved you every minute of your days. Whoever told you that Jesus comes with a to-do list, I also believe is wrong. But friends, I feel that life gets crowded without Jesus. Because with Jesus, there's an ease, a simplicity, a purpose from which everything else flows. Life is crowded because we do not have Jesus. And when we do, there is clarity. Do not miss Jesus, because life is too crowded. But don't miss Jesus also because you think it's too late. We don't know what time Joseph and Mary arrived at the Bethlehem Motel 6, but in the eyes of the innkeeper, it was too late. How many of us here today are thinking it's just too late? Maybe not chronologically late, but too late based on what has already played out in our lives, our past history, our mistakes, our failures, our regrets. You know, if the last 21 weeks has taught us anything in the story, it's taught us this. It's never too late. It wasn't too late for Abraham and Sarah to have a child. It wasn't too late for Moses, who came out of retirement to do his best work. It wasn't too late for Jonah, who decided to run out of town. God calls him back. It wasn't too late for Peter, who denies Christ. And it's not too late for Thomas, who doubted Christ. One of the most foolish things we can do is to put a time limit on God. You see, you and I, we see life in the lower story within seasons, calendars, months, weeks, hours, and minutes. A series of deadlines. But in God's time, it's never too late. Where in God's timing, grace is the ultimate keeper of time. Don't miss Jesus. Because our lives are too crowded or we think it's too late, but finally don't miss Jesus because Jesus is just too darn common. Common? I believe so many of us miss Jesus because we sit around staring to the heavens, waiting for the miracle, waiting for the immaculate, waiting for the extraordinary. When it's been my experience, and maybe yours too, that Jesus is most oftentimes found in the common, the everyday. What's more common in biblical times than a place called Bethlehem? Who was more common than Joseph and Mary? What was more common than a donkey? What was more common than a stable? Or the people who received the news first? Shepherds. It was all common. And it suddenly made sense to me this week. I had a eureka moment, an aha moment. Why in the world has God put us on this path to go through this story? It's been 22 long weeks. I find myself at the second Sunday in Lent doing Christmas. It's about this. It's about the common. It's common people doing common things. It's a common preacher hoping to ignite a passion within our hearts to keep our eyes open to do the common thing, the right thing, and to be open to it. This was not a list of extraordinary supernatural events. It was the common where Jesus places each of us. I end with this. Randy Frazee in his video shares a story I'm sure you've heard before, and I'm going to reduce it to next to nothing. It's the story of a Christmas pageant. It's the story of a young little boy, as they were giving out the parts, got the worst part of the Christmas pageant. the innkeeper. All his friends, they got Joseph, Mary, shepherds, and wise men, all the great parts, but he got the innkeeper. And it really bothered him. It bothered him because he knew when the place was packed and they had the pageant, and when Joseph and Mary knocked on the door, he had to turn them away. How in the world can I turn them away? And he agonized over that. He didn't want to play the part. And so the night of the pageant came, the place was packed. People were excited, there was a buzz, and the pageant went off without a hitch. Joseph and Mary, shepherds, wise men, on their game. When suddenly, Joseph and Mary knock at the door of the innkeeper. The little boy opens the door. Joseph shares those profound words, "Do you have any room?" And the boy responds, "I sure do, come on in." And in that moment, the entire congregation stands, begins to clap, and that was the end of the pageant. They rewrote the Bible. Friends, we are reminded today that each of us is an innkeeper. And there is another knock. And that knock is found at the door of our hearts. And if we open that door, we see that Jesus is standing there, waiting, wanting nothing more than to enter in. Don't miss Jesus. Don't miss Jesus because we're too busy. Don't miss Jesus because we think it's too late. Don't miss Jesus because he wasn't a rock star or walked the red carpet. We can receive communion this morning and still miss Jesus. Or we can let Jesus in our hearts and share a meal with him. Amen.